right, so I'd first like to thank you for watching our presentation. My name's Coby Keller, and today I will be talking about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Maybe. All right, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, also referred to as NHL, is a type of cancer that occurs within the lymphatic system with tumors formed from a certain type of white blood cells. Those white blood cells are called lymphocytes. They're just specialized cells that help to fight infection. It's one of the most common types of lymphoma, and NHL itself has many forms that it can take, such as diffuse large B cell lymphoma and follicular lymphoma. The more common of the two is the large B cell, with less common being follicular. There are several risk factors that increase a person's chance of getting non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. One risk factor is just one person's age. As you'll see in later slides from the data that we collected, age, especially for those over 60, are at a much higher risk to developing non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Another risk factor is having a close relative with NHL, such as parents, siblings, or even having a child could increase the risk of developing the disease. So it's not completely hereditary, but scientists can't rule it out. They're still trying to figure this stuff out. But it has been shown that if family members have the disease, you are more likely to have the disease in the future. Medications that weaken your immune system, such as those when receiving organ transplants to fight off the rejection of organs. It weakens the immune system and allows NHL to either become stronger or plant itself inside the body while the immune system can't fight. And also infections caused by viruses or bacteria such as HIV, AIDS, EBV, herpes, and many other types of STIs. Some facts that most people don't know about non-Hodgkin lymphoma. There are more than 60 types of non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and it's not just one single disease. NHL is the most common white blood cell cancer. Exposure to certain pesticides may increase the risk of getting NHL, so many pesticides on the bottle will say give risk factors, and non-Hodgkin lymphoma will be one of those that are listed. And as of right now, there's not one single way to treat non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's pretty much treating the symptoms and experimental procedures. Chemotherapy and radiation that is used to treat NHL kills not only cancer cells, but also kills normal cells. So when chemotherapy and radiation therapy are used, it's hard to pinpoint the exact source of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, usually in the lymph nodes. So what normally happens is when they go in to treat it, they will get the cancer cells, but they will also take some healthy cells with it, which could lead to damage in the future. So the hypothesis is irregular growth of the lymphocytes may play a role in non-Hodgkin lymphoma, with older white men being affected at higher risks. Methods: because non-Hodgkin lymphoma attacks the white blood cells, they can't do their job and fight off germs and infections. Instead, they don't protect the body and grow out of control. This is what causes the swelling and lumps of the lymph nodes. So when the immune system is down, it not only allows non-Hodgkin lymphoma to spread, it also allows for other infections and diseases to attack your body more readily, which will most often be the things that kill you over non-Hodgkin lymphoma. When running most statistical tests, we used Excel to set up equations and form graphs using the data provided from both our lab manual as well as various websites that focused on NHL that I have in the reference section. So the results from the research conducted in statistical tests that we ran, we were able to gather results regarding risk factors and the populations that are most affected regarding the development of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So this graph is a graph that I pulled during when we were forming our grabs for lab. This graph shows the average mortality rate by state for men and women. As you can see, men on average are more affected or have a higher mortality rate than women do. On average, somewhere between the 7 to 8 range is where the highest mortality rate would be. And then for this graph, it indicates that women have far lower incident rates than that of male counterparts. Incident rates are down here between 12.1 and 19.1, while men start about 17.1 and go all the way up to about 27. And this just indicates that men have a run-in with NHL more times than women do. All right, and then on average, white individuals die from NHL more than any other race. Mortality rates have been trending down over the past 18 years for all races, though. So from this graph, you can see that back in 1999, the U.S. white population was at a mortality rate of 8.6, and it's now down to just under 5.6. This is still extremely high compared to all the other races, such as Black Americans as well as Hispanic Americans. And then, like many other diseases, older individuals die more often than younger people. The graph also shows that older people may die more often than any other race, that white people die more often than any other race or age group. So here you can see that the AIAN individuals die at a lower rate, as well as age still having an effect, but not as much as it would for Hispanic and white Americans. White Americans still outrank all the other races categorized. All right, so for many of the statistical tests that we ran, as well as the studies that we looked over, we have concluded that older white men are more likely to develop or die from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This just pretty much means older white men don't have as strong as an immune system, and on average, they don't take care of themselves as well as many other race or age groups do. They're trending toward the end of life, so that is just one big issue that could come about. But through this, I've learned a lot about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. There are ways to prevent it, but a lot of these are common sense ways that most of us already take precautions for. A lot of it could be hereditary. There are still studies, but a lot of it is trending towards hereditary would be the cause of most incidents. Excuse me. But I really enjoyed learning about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and ways to prepare myself and educate others on ways that it affects them, as well as ways to treat or even try to prevent this disease. And here are my references. We used a lot from medicine.net, cancer.net, the Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, and cancer.org. These sites were most helpful just because of the information from many doctors and scientists that collected this data. And then we also referenced some material from the lab manual and the information that was listed there. All right, so that is the end of my presentation. I'd like to thank y'all for listening, and have a good day.